This is Cars and Bids, and today it is time to discuss the truth. The car market is slowing down. We've wondered when it would happen for years. It's been years of growth and craziness, but it is finally happening. So get in, get ready, because it's time to hear some truths. Let me give you a little background about why the car market went so crazy. A lot of people already know this, but here's the basic situation. We had COVID. That was March of 2020. It all kind of started. And COVID was kind of the perfect storm boom specifically for the car market because, number one, it caused supply chain issues for new cars. They couldn't get parts because factories were shut down because of COVID, and so new cars couldn't be built, and automakers were canceling orders for new cars. They didn't want more cars because they thought the economy was tanking, and so they were trying to be quick. The result was that new cars weren't around. Now, at the same time, interest rates are lowered dramatically in order to spur consumer spending and not stop everything in the economy. And so suddenly, it's very cheap to borrow money. And at the same time, a lot of money is sent out into the market, into the world by the federal government and governments all around the world in order to stimulate the economy. The stimulus programs to help businesses and to help individuals. All this money gets out there. So money is cheap to borrow, it's being widely distributed, and new cars aren't available. So suddenly used cars become kind of the thing. And the result was a crazy market run in used cars from about the summer of 2020 until maybe mid to late 22. And the result of that was that everybody thought they were a genius because you could buy a car in summer of 20 and resell it 6 months later or a year later and make money even though you drove it and used it. And this was even true for brand new cars. New cars could be bought, regular ones. Camrys, Honda Accords could be bought and then resold later without really losing money, even if you just treated it and drove it like a normal car, not even a special enthusiast car. Well, all of that seems to be over now. A few major things have changed. Number one, interest rates are high again. The result is that borrowing is now expensive again. People are prevented from borrowing. And in fact, they're actually encouraged specifically to save their money because savings accounts are able to provide such high interest rates right now. And so you're not really intended to go out and spend your money. The goal was to curb inflation from all the money that got out into the market. Well, high interest rates is how you do that. And that means people are going to be spending and borrowing less. Number two, no more government stimuluses. There hasn't been a stimulus program or stimulus checks given out to people in quite some time. And frankly, the high interest rates have kind of counteracted some of the stimulus money that went out there by making it more expensive to buy stuff with your newfound money. The other thing, maybe the most important thing in the car world specifically, supply has caught up with demand. Except for the fact that there's become a new issue with the auto workers strike for the big three automakers. I'm sure that will get resolved relatively soon. But except for that, supply and demand have started to kind of level once again. We have a situation where it's expensive to buy cars because of interest rates, so demand has dropped. Meanwhile, supply has ramped back up because COVID isn't affecting production anymore, supply chain logistics. So production is increasing, demand is dropping, and we're kind of reaching an equilibrium point wherein there's not some ridiculous, crazy demand for cars that is causing a huge price bubble. The result of all of these things is that the music has kind of started to slow in the car world. Every single one of my dealer friends has been telling me that this is a very, very slow time, reminiscent of times before COVID, in terms of the way the economy is handling this, especially in the car world. Car dealers are seeing fewer interested people, prices have started to fall, things have kind of started to drop again. Whether you want to call that normal, I don't even know what normal is anymore in the car world, but things have started to come back down to earth. So, you might be wondering, the car market is finally slowing down. You know, in 2022, I feel like it was pretty flat. 20 and 21 it went crazy. 22 was kind of flat. 23 now we are starting to really see the effects of it going down. So you're thinking, well, how does this affect me? I'll give you a couple of answers as it relates specifically to us here on Cars and Bids. Number one, your car is no longer worth what it was worth a year ago. our intake team, which handles all of the cars that kind of get submitted to the site, have been fighting with a lot of people sending in comparable cars to theirs, asking for high reserves based on prices that were 6 months or a year or even 18 months ago. And frankly, this is just not relevant data anymore. Just like in 2020 and 21, a car from 6 months ago wasn't relevant anymore because the market was moving up so fast. Right now it's the opposite. In 23, the car data from 21, 22 is no longer relevant because the market is moving down so fast. And so a sale from 9 months ago of a similar car to yours may not really be what your car is legitimately worth anymore. Another big way that this probably affects you if you're in the enthusiast car world is that deals are starting to return. Cars are finally starting to seem like good values again. Not all of them, certainly, not a lot of them actually, but deals are starting to come back. You're starting to see some prices where you look at it and say, wow, that is shockingly affordable for that car that has been propped up crazily for the last couple of years. I've already noticed a lot of different car prices are starting to come down. Back to reality. The 996 911, which had gone way up, I thought it was finally having a moment. It started to come back down. Air-cooled Porsche 911s are coming back down. The Honda S2000, which went crazy during COVID, is leveled off. Vipers have come back down. A lot of different, I mean, you could go through a bunch of these. Land Cruisers is maybe the best example. Toyota Land Cruisers went crazy during COVID, not only because cars were crazy in general, but because people were really, really into like off-roading and getting out into the wilderness, having a trip or a vacation away from people. It was like the way to do it without getting COVID. Well, now that's all coming to an end. Gas prices are high and Land Cruisers are no longer in huge demand. All of these prices are coming down. But those we probably could have predicted would start to come down. Cars that went way up, in a bubble, you start to think that that stuff would fall. The more interesting stuff to me is that the prices of fairly modern cars are finally starting to drop again. So cars in the 2016 to 2019 range, 5 to 7-year-old cars, are starting to finally become more affordable, like used cars should. They're finally starting to depreciate. So stuff like 5th generation Toyota 4Runner models are finally starting to depreciate. 991 Porsche 911s are finally coming down. BMW M2s are starting to come down. Cars that shouldn't have been holding their value for so long are finally starting to get into the realm of, okay, that makes sense that that price has fallen to that level. That's starting to become more reasonable and more affordable. To me, it's those cars that I'm most excited by because that's showing signs of a healthy and reasonable market. And it's those cars that I'm especially excited by because they're fairly modern and now becoming more and more buyable. You don't have to have 50 grand for an M2 anymore. They're starting to get into the 30s. Rivians are starting to finally come down. They're in the 60s, used ones. I mean, you're starting to see these trends of price depreciation actually finally happen, which is normal. Now, obviously, I say this, and the truth is borrowing has become very expensive. So it's just like with housing. Even though prices are starting to fall, it doesn't necessarily mean the car is going to be cheaper for you because interest rates are so high that if you finance it, it might still cost a lot of money to do. But the point is that prices are in fact coming down. And that's very clear to anybody who's paying attention to the industry right now. Another big thing that is not happening anymore, that a lot of people are going to be thrilled by this, flips. There are no more flips. Flips are done. This market has basically stopped. What I mean by flips, for the last 3 years, because new car supply was so constricted, you could go to the dealership, buy a new car, and then flip it for more than you paid almost right away. And this annoyed an enormous amount of people. You saw it happening with Broncos, with Lightnings, with Rivians, with Teslas, with all sorts of somewhat highly demanded new cars. Well, that has all dried up. Here at Cars and Bids, we sold a lot of quick Rivian sales to new buyers. We sold a lot of Lightnings, Bronco Raptors, Teslas. It doesn't seem like that is happening anymore. There's no way that you can show up at a dealer, C8 Corvettes, and buy a car at sticker and there be enough meat on the bone to be able to flip it and make money. Some cars are still worth a little more, but when you factor in sales tax and your time and all that, the market has dried up. The days of flips seem to be coming to an end. Now, there may still be some exceptions, like when the GR Corolla first came out, for the first month or two, it was still flippable, but it's generally seeming like the flip market has finally dried up and gone back to normal. Now, I also should call out, exotic cars, there's always a flip market. Ferraris, where there's a long waiting list, you can always flip it to someone on the waiting list who's willing to jump place. But in general, the flip world has kind of started to die as prices have started to decline and the car market has started to go back to rationality. Now, when people hear all of this stuff, the first thing they ask me, which I find to be very interesting, the first thing they ask me is, are there still good buys? You know, for the last few years, everybody's gotten obsessed with this concept of investment cars. You can buy something and have it be worth way more money. And people want to know, are there still cars that you can do that with? And I spent a lot of time thinking about this as I was, thinking about this video. And I wrote down a couple. I think vintage Lamborghini models are still buys. I have one right here. Please buy them, pay more for them, and I'll make more money. I actually do think those are still buys. I think they're a little bit undervalued, regardless of whether I have one or not. And if you don't believe me because I have one, then that's fine. I think Spikers are kind of a buy. The 997 GT3, Lotus Esprits seem like they're a little bit undervalued. But the truth is, the days of craziness have come to an end. And I wouldn't be buying anything right now, any of these cars, obviously the A-Class, but any of these cars included, I wouldn't be buying anything right now with the intent of trying to make money on it. That was a distinct possibility for the last 3 years, but don't go thinking in your mind that that is normally how it works in the car world. Yes, if you buy and hold a very special car like Carrera GT, you can probably make money. You probably will not beat a traditional index fund stock market. And regardless, that stuff, all those cars went so high so fast, and now things are slowing down so quickly, it's hard to imagine there's anything out there that's really going to still be going up. Some cars might be able to beat the market, some cars might be able to beat inflation, but I just have a suspicion we've seen a crazy run, and the days of crazy running are over. So yes, there are some cars that I think may still increase, but don't do it. It's over. The last 3 years have been an exception. If you're young and you've made money in these last 3 years on cars, it's over. Don't expect this to be the way the rest of the world works for the next however many decades. So there you go. That is the current state of the car market. It's been interesting. I've been wondering about this. When is this going to happen? It was clear throughout 2021 it would have to stop sometime. The music would have to stop sometime. And there's no doubt, if you talk to anybody in the car world right now, that time has come. I don't know when we look back on it if it will have been back in the spring or over the summer, but it is slowing considerably compared to how it's been for the last few years. That's the current market report. And I will say, if you've been annoyed that cars have been so expensive and so hard to get and they've been going out of reach, well, now's your chance. Everything has finally started to come down, prices are dropping, and cars will be reasonable once again. Probably. That's at least how it seems right now based on the current market forces.